Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Trix. Today we're going to be doing cellular automata maps. We're going to be doing another Raspberry video. I'm going to do another stream tomorrow on, I think it's Spark. Hopefully this one has a bit more coding than the last couple of ones, because the last couple have just been like walking through. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be another walkthrough one. That's a bit painful, but it should be okay. It's just a bit annoying because you can do a lot of cool stuff, but then it's like you don't get a full project from Spark, right? Like it doesn't tell you how to do like a full project. It just tells you, wait, there's a GitHub here. Let's have a look. Sorry, I know this was a bit derailed because this is supposed to be a Rust video, but I just wanted to see what it does. And just want to check this. Yeah, well, that's great, isn't it? So there's a ton of code that we can look into, but it's not all covered in just a tutorial. So I can look into it. I like abstract request handler. I'm probably This is just using Jackson. Okay. Oh, I hate GitHub's new Git. Extends, then implements. Okay, and then okay, yeah. Uses an object mapper to map the data from whatever to JSON. That's annoying. Because I don't want to do a stream where it's just me reading through, like at least with the Rust ones, I can like read through it, but then I'm copy paste. Yeah, I'm basically copy pasting, but I'm like talking about this is how this will work, and how I think it would work. Whereas this is just, hey, here's the code, and it doesn't give you a project to build from. Like, I'm just looking at all the Spark. Building a mini Twitter clone. Okay, this looks a lot more interesting. Why is it using Spring and Spark? Yeah, auto-wired's from Spring. Why is it using Spring if it's Spark? Oh, the pain. Okay. You know what, just for this first little bit, I just want to look at these tutorials, like go through them properly and just see if there's anything like I like in them. Is this serious? Oh yeah, just clicked on the same one. I don't want to waste too much time on this, which is why I'm flicking through. But from what I can see, I really don't like this. Not the framework. Not the. I need to be better with my word choice. I don't mean I don't like the framework. I mean I don't like how these tutorials are structured. Is the way it's using Netty any interesting? Yeah. Okay. That's disappointing, though, isn't it? I thought there'd be more substance, like in the spring tutorials and in the play tutorials, like the original ones that were from Akka, where at least it had the whole project for you to go through that you can look through and you can understand the thing. Yes, you had the code and the link to GitHub, but it's not giving you detailed explanation into every single class. At least for Play and Spark, you would be copy pasting or you'd be editing some code, or it would at least go through all of the classes and tell you what it's doing and like how it works. They didn't tell you like the things you could change to make it better or like to customize the application, but you can infer that unless the only code is these. How many classes is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Unless those 4 to 5 classes, I'm not even going to count that as a 5th class because this is basically the same. Unless those 4 classes are the only classes in this GitHub project, I don't know what to say. Look, Java app, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's more than 4 classes now, isn't there? Of course, log factory. One, 2, 3, 4. So they've got an extra class kicking about somewhere. Okay, let's go to roadmap. At this point, I don't even know if I want to learn Spark because the tutorial isn't that great at all. Where's Java? Java, okay. Oh. Am I logged in? Yeah. Alright. Let me just pain. Generate. Okay. Remotes. Alright. So JPA. That's the book. I've done it in spring. I'm pretty sure I've done it in spring anyway. Just hibernate. E-bean. or again, sorry for derailing the first half of this. I just want to see what I can learn next. Really? Oh, come on. Blog? No. Community? I wish they just had like a tutorial section. Like, come on. Hibernate tutorials. Maybe eBean has a bit more. Get started. Okay. Gradle. Well, that's an example project. That's nice. Docs. eBean tutorials. That looks interesting. If I click on learn, reference doc. That's wonderful, isn't it? So we've got one page of content. Alright, JDBC. Don't need to look at login frameworks, I don't need to look at that. JDBC. JDBI. JDBC. Log4j is fine. SLF4j is fine. I should really mark off the ones I'm using at work. Log4j. Mockito. JUnit. Am I using JMeter? Let me just check the website for JMeter. JMeter. I'm just gonna look at images for JMeter because I think I use it. Bing. Don't really care either way. JMeter's not that bad. Cool. So really, the only ones I need to look at are the ones that aren't highlighted right now. But I've pretty much touched everything. Spring, JDBC. The thing is, with Beldong's blog posts, I don't use them as tutorials, I just use them as reference documentation. Like, you could probably get up and running and make an application like this with this, sorry. But I just use it as reference documentation. So that might go getting involved, using JDBI projects, and getting started. Mods, build tools. Just writing the SQL, okay. Jamia, again, just down to Hibernate. Test NG. Rest assured. And then there is logback. TinyLog. Cucumber, JVM. Just gonna open up these two. Kooks. And JBehave. Just gonna take a look at these. Okay, so testing. Before class, at test. That just looks like JUnit, doesn't it? This is test NG. Just looks like JUnit. And they have migration documentation, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same because you can just do arrange act assert, which is just assert for J. And then, yeah, assert JUnit. Is that it? So the annotations are the same then? I just want to check that. Are the annotations basically the same? Before test, after test, yeah. Before in JUnit, you can have before each, before all, after each, after all, and then at test annotations for all of your actual tests. You can just do that. Wait. Oh, you can set priority. So that's like if you run tests normally, it doesn't always run your tests in the same order. It could run your tests in a different order. It's just how the JVM loads up the methods on your class when it does the reflection on the classes, right? So there's no guarantee that it will call the methods in the exact same order that you set them up. But it's a test, so it shouldn't really matter. But if you need a test to run before a different test, then obviously you'd want to set priority. So I'm guessing that's what this is for. Using a GUI doesn't really matter. What I care about is the actual like functional differences of TestNG and JUnit. The output looks different, but it's not that bad. After method. See, the thing is, I don't know if so basically what I'm thinking of right now is in JUnit you can provide a value source, right? I think that's in JUnit. I'm not sure if that's JUnit or Cert4J. Value source JUnit. Before I say anything else, I just want to check because if it's yeah, it's a parameterized test. I haven't seen that yet in test ng. I'm assuming you can do it, so I'm just going to because functionally test ng and JUnit are basically the same. So I'm not going to say I don't know it. I technically, if you can run JUnit, you can do test ng. It's not that hard. Just the annotations are a little different, and if you do at in any IDE, that's good. It will tell you how to use it, so it's fine. This is when then status code. This is like a Mockito's mock server, right? Stop, and then you can have with whatever exactly responds with status code, with headers, with body, and then rest assured, if you look at the where is it? Here it is. This bit status code body, so it's pretty much the same. Okay, I don't know why that's separate to Mockito for the integration test because you could just use Mockito for the same thing. Well, hang on. No, it's pretty much the same. I'm counting that. Or there should be a pull. That should really in integration tests that should really include like mock server, because mock server isn't just for when you want to mock something. You can use mock server in an integration test. Like that's completely fine if you're using it for. If they're gonna use rest assured, they can use mock server as well. That Mockito should probably go in both, or they could just split Mockito and mock server into unit tests and integration tests. But you can use it in both. Let me just add that as a to-do to open poll on roadmap.sh for mock server in Java for sh missing mock server in int test Java roadmap. There we go. I'll get around to that eventually. Yeah, that's SLF audio. Interesting. I don't know if I like that. So basically, this is just saying this is what the output of your log will look like, where I'll have the timestamp, thread, level of the log. So like if it was info warn, debug or whatever, then the actual logger that's running. So the name of the class. That's so in SLF4J you can pass in the class name through this get logger. So that's what will be populated here, and then this bit I'm not sure about, but then this is the message to the actual log that you're putting in. This dash kvp I'm not sure. Yeah, timestamp info in logger and then message. Yeah, so this is a good example of one that's actually got like the same flow. So this is timestamp, then thread is running on, which is the main thread, then level is info, debug, whatever, then the actual class that your logger is coming from, then just the message for the log. On console status. That's not that bad. For context, if you ever use a logger, I recommend always using something like SLF4J, just because it lets you abstract your logging framework away from your actual code, so you don't have to worry about, this is what this logging method does in this logging. This is what this logging framework needs for you to make a log. You can just have SLF4J call like an info method, a debug method, and a warn method, or like an error method or whatever, and then that gets passed, whatever parameter you pass through to that method just gets logged out, and you don't have to worry about any of the nonsense of, oh, this is how this logging framework does it, or that logging framework does it. You can just worry about actually writing your logs. It's a lot nicer. And then everything else pretty much the same as just log4j. That's fine. Tiny log. Well, that's very concise, isn't it? So I'm just gonna tiny log. That's fine. Log back is fine. Logging frameworks, I'm just gonna, like, logging frameworks isn't that bad. Cucumber. Oh god, really? Again, this is still a rush stream. It's just me looking through this stuff because I don't want to do all of this tomorrow and then I have no idea what I want to do for my stream tomorrow, because Spark has obviously like gone in the gutter. Let me just, oh yeah, I opened that. That's just parameterized tears. Hibernate is just like, come on. JBehave tutorials. JBehave tutorial. Well, that's nice. I would like some dogs. Etsy Selenium, do they have dogs? Okay. Java Spring? SRC main? No, they do not. Come on, man. Tutorials. Yeah, I know, but that's not a tutorial, that's just an example project. Come on, man. Literally every Java framework you'll see just uses bloody reflection to do whatever it wants, and that's it. Yeah, pretty much. I literally just said reflection. Just always reflection everywhere. Like, don't get me wrong, reflection is nice, right? Like, reflection is really cool when it's necessary. If it's not necessary, you just give me classes to use it. Like, it's very usable, right? Like, reflection is very nice. because you don't have to do much. You just write an annotation, pass in the shit you want it to do, and then it just gets it done. But just give me classes. Just give me classes and give me good documentation to figure it out. Come on. Like, this basically just looks like, yeah, it is a test. It's just set up for a test. Come on. Oh, jeez. You know, okay, let's move on. Let's have a look. In Java, what does it recommend? Dedicated roadmap, Java, free course, free. Okay, C#. Yeah. Postgres. There's a PostgreSQL roadmap. Oh God. Christ. Okay. Well, GitHub isn't that hard, so if they have a roadmap for this, I'm going to be very disappointed. Basic terminal stuff. Do they have any good Rust stuff? Rust by example, Rust for score, Rust by numbers. Yeah. They have a Go one. They have a Go track. You know what? Off stream, I'll have a look through this one and just see what I want to do, to be honest. The newstack.io. What's this? It's a news website, okay. But anyway, interesting. Still disappointed with Spark, but hey ho. We keep it moving. Anyway, so let's go into, again, for the first 30 minutes of that, I'm very sorry, just very disappointed. I just wish. Hang on, let me write this. Okay. I just wish these libraries and frameworks or whatever, I appreciate the example documentation, the example projects and everything, because if you actually like want to hack on it and get it up and running, very useful, right? But if you're trying to get started and you're like undecided, just give me a nice tutorial with nice step-by-step walkthrough on what it does, how it works, how it compares to other frameworks, and just have me like go through it. And if I want to, then I can refer to that example project, right? But at least set it up that I can start building it and like start implementing it from scratch if I wanted to. Don't just directly send me to that example project and be like, hey, this is your tutorial. It's not a tutorial if it's not teaching me anything. It's just, hey, it's like saying, hey, here's a cake. You want to bake a cake? Here's a cake. Here's your way of baking a cake, and you give them a cake, right? Like, that's not a tutorial. That's literally just, hey, that's literally what this is. It's just, hey, here's an example project. You can look at all of the code, but if you look at it, it doesn't mean you're going to understand it or how it wires up together unless you read the documentation. So all you're basically saying is, hey, here's an example project. Read all the documentation, and whatever you don't understand, just read the documentation for. Like, it could be so much simpler if you just make a tutorial, a proper tutorial, not just an example project that just step by step goes through, okay, cool, we're going to make this class that does this. Then you're hooking up other things and showing, hey, this is how this works, this is how that works. At the end of the day, I think I'm just... It's because of the Akka tutorials and the Spring tutorials that I'm thinking of this. Because if those tutorials can do it, and they can do it nicely, where like the Akka ones, they didn't have you code it, but at least they made you go through it and say, hey, try doing this, look at this code does this. Why did you do it this way? Because it does this. You can change this to do this. That I appreciated. With Spring, it was more hands-on with, hey, we're going to start from this point with like this bare bones code, and we're just going to keep going until you build some massive thing. Nice still. But then you got these ones that are like, hey, no documentation, no real documentation to look at or tutorial to look at, just hey, here's the docs for all of our API. Fair enough. And then just giving you an example project and saying this is our tutorial. Not really a tutorial. You get me? Like, at least with this, like, hey, I'm looking at the code, but I'm actually able to read through it and understand why the author's done it this way, and he explains with different code blocks that hey, you could do this or do that, but you've decided to go with this because of this, right? He's explaining the thought behind it, and it helps me understand it better. But then you've got these other tutorials that are just an example project that don't actually do that. I know I'm going on a rant for a bit, and I'm going to stop here and get back to Rust, but it just annoys me a little bit because these frameworks are good. They're probably good, but I'm put off for using them purely because of the lack of surrounding documentation for new users, right? Like, it's fine if like lots of frameworks work like that. Like Netty kind of works like that too, and I love Netty to bits, right? But even I've got to say with Netty, God, please improve your tutorials or something. Like, I still remember when I was trying to modify something and I had to find some blog post from like 2020 explaining something, and it's just because the documentation in the actual class is very low level, but it doesn't explain anything in between. Like, if you're coming from if you know it already, you're probably going to be fine. You can probably muddle it together. But if you want to understand how everything links together, how everything works together, that's a lot of reading, and then a lot of, okay, I've read this, let me try piecing this together with this, and then, like, come on, one nice tutorial about that whole class, or like using that whole class or something, would have been really nice. And I get that all of these guys are just open source maintainers and open source developers, so actual time dedicated towards these types of things isn't a high priority, but it's just a little bit of a pet peeve for me. I can't really blame open source maintainers because they have the main thing is just getting your code out and making sure that it's working. You've got to fix bugs, you've got to fix issues, and everything like that. But it would just be a little bit nicer if the tutorials were a little bit better, and that's it. This is not a knock on any of the developers. The developers are probably great people, and I appreciate all the things that they're doing, because without these frameworks, there'll just be like one bog standard framework, no competition, no nothing, right? Like, the best frameworks come out from competition in the space to push other frameworks forward. Oh, one's a low latency framework, one's a minimalistic framework, one's a everything batteries baked in framework. They're all different methods, but it's like one's just pushing the other one forward, right? All in the same space, but everything is just, the use case is different, and you don't want to be tied down to one thing. I just wish that the tutorials were a bit better, because then at least more people would be willing to try them out and try getting on board with them, instead of just, hey, I'm stuck, I'm using this framework, the other frameworks are documentation is ass, they're probably going to suck anyway, so I'm not going to use this framework. Most of the time it's not like that. Most of the time you might enjoy it just because that framework just does something a little bit differently, or you see something in that framework and you're like, ooh, that's nice, let me try it in this framework. But you will never get to that stage if there's no tutorials to ease someone into it. I hope that makes sense. Again, this isn't a knock on any of the maintainers or any of the developers behind any frameworks or behind any type of documentation or code or library, right? All I want is just some good tutorials, not just an example project or like a blog post that's just explaining a little piece of code and that's it. Like, it's fine to do those things, right? If you're just saying, hey, this is something I found cool, or oh, this is what you can do as like a little bit of an example, right? But again, the key word here is, if you label it a tutorial, I'd expect a tutorial with steps, like multiple steps, telling you here's step 1, step 2, step 3, whatever, like going through it, right? Not, hey, here's a tutorial and then just slapping a GitHub project in front of you and being like, look at the code. Anyway, my mini rant aside, let's get on. Sorry about that, and I don't want to be a downer. It's just how I feel, and I just wish a lot more maintainers would do that. It's just, yeah. Anyway. Where is this one? No. Ooh, interesting. I've forgotten what the keybind is. 6J? No. What am I doing? Okay, 0. V6J. Okay. And then it's... there we go. I forgot the space. Always good to know, isn't it? No. Cellular or automata build the new that. There we go. Let me just, you know what I could have done? Oh god, I knew I'd done something wrong. Hang on. Pain. V dollar back P. There we go. And then let me go up. And then mod cellular automata cellular automata builder. Whoops, I want that, and then whoops, and then use cellular automata cellular automata builder. There we go. Putting together the basic map. Here's the build function. Cool. So in here. Okay. So if I just check this, where did the build go? Build goes there. Cool. Again, if there is a specific language or something you would want me to look into, or a specific library you want me to look into that you think would be interesting, I'm down. Like, I'll be interested in doing anything of the sort, pretty much. Just because, as you can see, my journey is just learning as much as I can and enjoying it. If there is a library that I don't like or something, I will comment and say I don't like it, but this isn't out of hey, I don't like this, stop maintaining it or something like that. No, it's just if I don't like something, it's me personally liking it. Someone else might like it, someone else might not like it, right? You know, it comes down to what your use case is and what you feel like you would want to use it for. If you don't like it, why you don't want to use it and stuff like that, right? I'm just saying that I don't particularly like using something, so perfect example. I like using Netty, but I hate using these other frameworks like Spring and Spring, Akka, Spark, all of these, Play, all of these frameworks that are basically built on top of a Netty. You could, because it's built on top of Netty, it just feels like bloat. Just use raw Netty. Like, if you're gonna use Netty anyway, just let me have access to Netty. I don't need your other stuff on top of Netty just so that I can use your thing. Like, it's nice if it's like, oh, you want to be unique and use that thing. Like with Akka, the clustered members is really cool, but you could just use Netty and then a clustering framework that you want, that you can plug and play, instead of instead of combining all of that into one. Like, it's very convenient if you know that you're going to stick with akka for the rest of your development cycle, right? But requirements change, and you never know. Akka could like stop development, and then you're gonna have to refactor all of your code that uses akka because of the pure netty code that you're trying to use anyway, and then you're gonna have to refactor all of your clustering logic because all of your clustering logic is now built on top of akka. So you're better off just using pure netty, which, yes, the reliance on netty is still there, but at least with netty you know that the likelihood of it it could also disappear, but you're better off just using netty and then abstracting away your clustering framework, so that kind of like log4j or slf4j, sorry. So you're abstracting away the actual clustering logic, but you're implementing like an abstraction so that you can access it without having to mess with the underlying clustering framework. So you could just plug and play your clustering framework behind the scenes, and everything still is fine in your production code, because your production code isn't relying on method calls straight to your clustering logic, which is what I'm assuming would happen if you use akka. But if you use akka, you could also abstract away that logic as well, right? But again, if it's better if you use separate libraries, because what I find is if you try, lots of people like the whole like batteries baked in type of thing. I don't particularly like it, because it just means first you're shipping like a crap ton of logic with your code that you might not even necessarily need all of. You might only need like a couple of things, so you're better off just using the bare minimum. Yes, you're going to be importing more libraries, but the actual package size that you'll be producing will probably be a lot smaller, because you're more focused on, hey, I only need this thing from this library, let me just pull it, right? And then what was I going to say? I've forgotten. But yeah, I don't really like the whole batteries baked in thing. Like, it's very convenient, right? Like, that's the whole point of batteries baked in. It's very convenient, but then yeah, you get like, it's not vendor lock-in, but it kind of is, where you're very dependent on that logic, and because that logic was very nice to you, very convenient for you, you moving away from that is very inconvenient. You get me? That's the prime reason why you'll see people use again, sorry. That's the prime reason you'll see people use something like interfaces, right? Because if you have an interface, all of those methods you're calling on that interface are going to exist everywhere. It doesn't matter what the underlying code does, you know that method is going to do something, and you're expecting it to do the thing you want. It might not do it in the way you want it to, it might have a different implementation of some other things, but you know the end result is always going to be something similar, or something that you're expecting, right? It doesn't matter what the underlying class is, because you're just taking that interface and doing whatever the hell you want with it. Just my two cents, pretty much. Anyway. I don't know if Distro's algorithm uses A star. It's a searching. No, is it a searching or pathfinding through algorithm? Oh, I can't remember. Oh, discrete maths was so long ago, but it's very nice. I recommend this, and I think I've already talked reading about this. This shows maps. If I haven't talked about it already, all of this like abstraction stuff that I've been talking about, purely because my brother's also reading philosophy of software design. And if I haven't talked about it already, I do recommend it for other people. Please give it a read. You might not implement everything, or you might think that some things are stupid, which is valid, but just give it a read and just think about your current coding practices and how you're currently doing things. And like, if it was a production system, would you want to be, what would you rather go with? If that would make sense, like, would you rather use the way that you're currently doing it, or would you rather implement the way that the philosophy of software design describes it? It's kind of similar to clean coders, but I prefer this to clean coders just because clean coders has very clean coders to me feels like a rule book kind of, where it's like, hey, you need to do things like this, and it's like lots of people take it as like, oh, you have to do things like this, right? Otherwise your code's not going to be maintainable or stuff. With a philosophy of software design is mainly about, think about how to code, think about the code that you're writing, review it, see if you can improve it in any way possible, and don't just do something because on the spur of the moment you think that's going to be a good idea. Like I was talking to my brother about this as well. The chapter I like the most is the one where it talks about designing things twice. You can apply that to literally everything, including refactoring. Like, okay, let's say you're refactoring some logic, right? And you're like, ooh, this logic's being reused multiple times. In the book, it also talks about you can refactor logic, but does it make sense to refactor that logic if the output of it should be different per implementation, right? If it doesn't make sense for it to be refactored and you're just refactoring it because the code exists somewhere else, that doesn't make sense, because the thing that is taking in, or the things that it will be doing, shouldn't be moved out if it's only going to be used in the same place in every single piece of code that you're using. For example, if you're using if you're using interfaces, right, and then you're implementing that interface, you might have similar code in your methods, right? It does not make sense to move that code to a method on that interface to then call if it's going to be implemented in all of the methods, all of the same methods, right? It's better to just stay in those methods, have those methods be a little bit longer with all of the logic there, instead of moving that somewhere else. It's fine to move that into a private method on that class, right? But moving that out of that class and putting it somewhere else so that it's accessible for everywhere, so you don't have to rewrite it, wouldn't make sense, because then when you're like investigating it in production for like issues or something, and you may have to test that code, now you're jumping between multiple classes purely because you decided to refactor that code when that code could just live in where it currently is. I'm not saying that all code should be like that, where you have like some massive code block that's like 1,000 lines, not formatted, all of it's in the same method. That doesn't make sense, because that's the point where you can't even read it, right? The ideal that I think is you should be able to at least get a whole method, onto a screen. If that method is longer than a screen, you probably need to refactor it, right? Like, prime example, this build method pretty much just fits in the screen. It's fine. Whole class, fine. Yeah, it's 40 lines. It's not even 40 lines. It's 100 and something lines. Oh, come on. Hang on. Yeah? It is. That's 63. 37. Around 100 lines, right? Purely fine. Like, nothing wrong with this file. If this, like, in clean code, there's a thing that's like, your method should be less than 5 lines. Insane, right? Like, just a for loop on its own. This for loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines. They would recommend that you move this for loop into multiple methods so that it's less than 5 lines. Like, that does not make sense, right? But lots of people live by that because it moves your logic out lets it live somewhere else, right? So that you don't have to pay attention to it. But now, especially with languages like Java and stuff like that, you definitely don't want that if you have to inspect a stack trace. That's going to be extremely massive because it has to follow all of those calls back, right? It's going to be jumping from one line to another line, then back to your class, and then going through a bunch of other classes or a bunch of other methods. It's going to be pain. No point. Anyway. I've done a lot of talking about how I really like Netty, and I do genuinely recommend it. If you've never tried Netty before, it's a very great experience. It's a bit... what's the right word? It's a bit of a hassle to get up and running, but once you've got it up and running, it's very nice to use. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm just going to read through this, and then every class that is touched, I'm just going to copy paste them. God damn it. Automata would be nice if I could spell, wouldn't it? P0P. There we go. Morris. Oh, whoops. And then spawner. I really don't like the new look of GitHub's like diff, if that makes sense, of how it shows code. Let's see. PG, that's 312. 328. There we go. God, no. There we are. Let's see if I'm missing anything out. I thought I was streaming for at least 2 hours, I was about to say. Only feels like an hour. No, it is now. Nice. Let's cargo run. Interesting. It does look a lot more complex now. I? Oh, I've got nothing. Okay. Oh god. Oh, I stepped in a bear trap, damn. Okay, there we are. I'm hungry, so I'll just eat a ration. I do not have any health potions anymore. Let me just use the health potion. Hey. How do I not have any weapons, man? That's a bear trap. That is the exit. Gotta avoid that bear trap. Oh, damn. It's nice that it auto like randomly generates which map to use. It's really cool. Accidentally went through that. Nice. Let me just remove this. Delete. Cool. Next chapter is chapter 28. Drunkards walk maps. There we go. Let me put this in coding. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure to have something prepared for tomorrow that's kind of related to Java. I'll try, but we might just be doing the backend roadmap from now on, just because the libraries don't really have tutorials, and it's just like some of them are already touched with Spring, or I've touched them at work anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I'll still give them a go. We might be moving on to the backend roadmap, but I'll make sure that tomorrow has some coding at least. Instead of doing that, we might be doing Go again instead. I don't particularly want to do Go again, but it's on the roadmap, so we might give it a shot. It's just because Rust isn't on there that we're not gonna. I'm probably going to do Rust, Go, C#, Java. There was one there, JavaScript, another one, and then one more. Probably gonna go in that order. So Rust, Go, then that way, then this way. So top to bottom. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, enjoy the rest of your day, and peace. I mean, peace. Put a thumbs up for a minute.